Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, that we discussed in the beginning, it wasn't the only thing that he says not give charity on Shabbat. There's many things that he said that a lot of people keep today. For example, he says one of his things the Muslims took from us. It's the Muslims took this commandment, this from Rabbi Yehuda Chassid also. What does it say? One is not allowed to build his house higher than the shul. He says, don't build your house higher than the shul. That's the one thing he says. Another thing, it says, do not marry two children in the same day. Two children are not allowed to get married in the same day. One more thing he says, I don't know how Sfaradim do it, but you're not allowed to be a sandak for the same family twice. A sandak is the person who holds the baby when you do the circumcision. Okay. It's like the godfather. It's like you're not allowed to have two sandaks. Same sandak on two kids. You have to have different sandaks. Yeah, that's also comes from him. Too. That's Faradim also, but it comes from him. There's no other sources. Also, another interesting thing, it says people who fight, people who are used to known to be fight, do not bury them next to each other. Don't bury them, no matter what. He says, don't bury them. A lot of people ask the joke, what about the wife? You fight with her all the time. But that's just a joke. In Chabad, it's not a problem because men and women are not buried together. You have men's section and women's section. By the way, just by Chabad, I don't know why. Nobody else holds it. Interesting thing. Another thing that comes from Rabbi Yehuda Chassid is when a man gets married, his wife shouldn't have the same name as his mother. Oh, that's also, or the opposite, when a woman gets married, her husband shouldn't have the same name as her father. And if they do, sometimes the marriage, people didn't know this, and they're already dating and they already decided, and then somebody came up, hey, you have the same number. So usually what happens is they change the name. One of them actually changes the name or adds a name, and then it makes it okay. Right now, we are in the middle of 4 parashot, 4 sections of the Torah that we read every Shabbos, and these 4 parashot specifically talk about the donations in the temple. That's what we're talking about. Donations in the temple. Just as a side story, which actually is going to introduce this whole thing today, the Rebbe, everybody knows, used to give dollars. There was a whole thing that the Rebbe, people would line up for hours and they would give dollars. One of the times, it was many times done, Motzei Shabbos. In the end of Shabbat, after Shabbat was over, he would start giving out dollars, and it will sometimes last for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. And he will continuously give dollars, give blessings. People would ask him questions. It wasn't much time to ask a lot of questions, but it was quick. And so one of these days, it looks like there was a nudnik. Like in every congregation there's a nudnik. So also there was a nudnik over there. So he asked the Rebbe, it looks like somebody was complaining, how come the Rebbe gives charity at night, where it's known that charity at night is not given? So that was the question, and that's it. The Rebbe talked about this in one of his sikhs. So let's look inside and start to understand, first of all, I don't give charity at night. What's the problem? So this is parts. There's many parts. There's going to be many parts over here that we're going to learn from the inside, and we're going to learn it to understand what's going on over here. So let's start.
Yeah, I didn't know that you can give tzedakah at night.
So we're going to start. If you can or not, we'll see. So it starts in the beginning. Yadua ma shekatuv betzavaat Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. The Rebbe says it is known what it is written in the will of Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. What's Rabbi Yehuda Chassid? Now Rabbi Yehuda Chassid was a tzaddik, a Kabbalist, who lived around 1200. And when he passed away, he left a will to his children. And in that will, he left not money, he left them instructions of how to behave. many Kabbalistic things that we still do today. Now, some people, there's a whole debate if it's just for his offsprings or it's for the entire Jewish nation, but nevertheless, many of the things the entire Jewish nations keep, as we're going to see soon. So this is the Rebbe says, we know what is written in the will of Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. By the way, this is $1,200. Hasidim started 1,200 in the year 1200 around. Hasidim started with the Baal Shem Tov, around late 70s, 1700s. So why is it called Rabbi Yehuda Chassid? Because the word Chassid, even in the time of the Gemara, had a special meaning. The special meaning for the word Chassid means somebody who is willing to endanger himself for the sake of somebody else. That's what the word Chassid means. Somebody who is he's willing to take damage to himself in order to save somebody else. That's the quick definition of the word Chassid. And what did he say? This Rabbi Yehuda, the Kabbalist, what did he say? שיש להימנע מהוצאת ממון במוצאי Shabbat. It says when it comes to after Shabbat, people shouldn't deal with money. Wait for the next day. Wait for Sunday.
My grandfather, I remember, as a kid, he was a contractor, and the people would come, you owe me money, Motzei Shabbos. He say, no money, Motzei Shabbos.
Very good.
Don't give checks.
Very good. That it comes from where? From Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. That's where it started. Rabbi Yehuda Chassid started that thing. No money, Motzei Shabbos. We don't deal with money, even though you're allowed to. According to halacha, you're allowed to. There's no problems. Shabbos is over. Shabbos is over. But Kabbalistically, esoterically, we don't deal with money matters Motzei Shabbat. And then the Rebbe continues. וכידוע גם הסיפור שסיפר כבוד קבוצת מורי וחמי אדמו"ר, נשיא דורנו, אודות הנהגתו של אביו. It says, everybody knows the famous story with the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, that he said it about his fathers. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe told this story about his father, who was the Rebbe Rashab. שאמר לרבנית, the Rebbe Rashab, fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe, used to tell the Rebbetzin, used to give her instruction. And what was the instruction? עקרת הבית, she was the mainstay of the house, שלא תבקש ממנו ממון במוצאי שבת עבור הוצאות הבית במשך השבוע. It says, I know you need money for the next week, but don't ask me for that money after Shabbat. So if you need the money right away, when should you ask me? Ask me on Friday already. You know you're going to need the money, so ask me already on Friday, so I don't have to deal with money right after Shabbat. I don't deal with money after Shabbat. שלאחרי השבת, אם בערב Shabbat, it says either you can ask me it on Friday, you can ask me for the money, or לאחרי מוצאי Shabbat, or on Sunday. But after Shabbat, I don't deal with money. And this is the Rebbe is asking this question on whom? On him. Because Motzei Shabbos, see, what does the Rebbe do? He gives dollars. He's dealing with money. Exactly the opposite of what? Of what Rabbi Yehuda Anasi says. And then he continues. Mizot ve'od. And he says, it's not only over here. It's going to become even more problematic to deal with money after Shabbat. It says, בנוגע לכללות עניין הצדקה, when it comes to charity, ידוע מה שכתוב בירושלמי. It says it's not only Kabbalah that says you're not allowed to deal with money on Shabbos. It says it in other places also. Where does it say it? It says it in Yerushalmi. In Talmud Yerushalmi, what does it say? שכאשר אמורה נתן צדקה בלילה, it says there was a certain Amora who gave charity at night, הייתה נגדו טענה ותרעומת שזה קשור עם הסגל גבות של הצד שכנגד וכולו. It says immediately the demons up in hell went into a tizzy. They said, what is going on over here? We had a deal that there's no command, there's no mitzvahs at night. Especially which mitzvah? Especially the mitzvah. It says we had a deal. We thought we had a deal. You want to give charity? Charity is given when? During the day. Who are you to start breaking the deal that we have and giving charity at night? It says, by the way, what is this deal? Just so that we'll understand this. Many people know that when we have a wedding, the Khatan breaks the glass. And many people think it's to remember Yerushalayim. That's one of the reasons, but there's other reasons. One of the main reasons why the Khatan breaks the cup, it is because one of those things is that you need to give the evil side something to be happy about. It says if you don't give the evil side something to be happy about, he's going to find things to be happy about. He's going to make a fight between the husband and the wife, between the two mother-in-laws, and the whole wedding is going to go. So you say to the Yetzer Hara, you say to the evil demons, so-called, you know what, we'll give you something. Here, you want something? Here, something is broken, now you're happy? Keep quiet now. That's the idea. So,
beat him to the punch.
That's right. So over here it's the same thing. The demon says, "Hey, we have a machloket. We divided forces. Charity is in the day. We celebrate at night. However, we celebrate at night. Casinos, nightclubs. This is for the night. Leave the good stuff for the night."
Who made this deal?
It says God made it from the beginning. That's why there's the realm of night and the realm of day. That's what it is. There's a realm of night. If somebody goes out at night, it means that there's something not good going to happen. Something going to go out during the day. It means going to work. It's going to do something productive. That's the way. That's the way it was divided through the time. Valpize, and the Rebbe continues and says, so according to this, מתעוררת שאלה בנוגע לחלוקת הדולרים. He asked the question of saying, first of all, he says, it's Motzei Shabbos. Second of all, we have a problem, what? It's at night. You know? מכיוון שנמצאים אנו בלילה במוצאי שבת. So he's pretty much says, how dare I give dollars, deal with money, when both Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid says not to, and not only Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid said not to, the Yerushalmi Talmud says no to. So let's continue and see. This is from the Yerushalmi Talmud. We're going to read it inside, exactly what happened over there. So the story was like this. Rabbi Chinena bar Papa. There was a Rabbi Chinena bar Papa. היה מחלק מצוות של צדקה בלילה. He used to give charity at night. יום אחד פגע בו שר הרוחות. Just as before we even start, it was known that Rabbi Chinena bar Papa used to have a lot of debates with the evil guy upstairs. Oh. He was known to be the one who, they used to be friends. I mean, not friends, but they used to have a lot of conversation between the two. They used to be, it's not the only conversation we find between them. So it was a common thing for these two to be together. And they used to hash out, the boundaries. We're on page 4 all the way in the top. יום אחד פגע בו שר הרוחות הרעים. There was one time that the demon caught up to him. אמר לו לרבי חיננה בר פאפה, he told him to רבי חיננה בר פאפה, לא כך לימדתנו רבנו את... So the demon asked him, what are you doing? Didn't we get to an agreement? You give charity in the day, and we do what we do at night. Don't come into our area. So אמר לו לרבי חיננה בר פאפה, לא כך לימדתנו רבנו את דבר הכתוב, לא תשיג גבול רעך. It says, you come and you preach to us. What do you preach to us? We shouldn't go into the day realm. We should leave you alone. We should not bother Jews when it comes to commandments. Right? It says you should not approach the boundary of your neighbor. So we're not approaching the boundary of your neighbor. We don't interfere with the Jewish nation when they want to do commandments. Why are you interfering with our time? If you want to go out at night, go to nightclubs, go to casinos, go to das. This is our time over here. What are you getting involved over here? It's not your realm. Your realm is in the day. That's what they say to him. ועכשיו הוא זמן הלילה. Now is the time at night. והוא זמן שלטונם של הרוחות הרעים ולא של בני אדם. At night, the demons rule, not tzaddikim. You rule in the day, we rule at night. So we want to give a good atmosphere at night. What's a good atmosphere at night for the demons? Like I said, nightclubs and bars and casinos. Those are the good times. Amar lo Rabbi Chinana bar Papa. So Rabbi Chinana now has to answer him. He's got a good thing. Rabbi Chinana all the time complains that the evil inclination is coming during the day. Now what is going to say? V'chi lo chach ne'emar. It says you right, but there's a verse in the Torah that prohibits me from listening to you. It says, wow, what does it say in the Torah? It says, Matan beseter ichpe af. It says that when you give charity, it has to be hidden. It has to be hidden. When you give charity, nobody should know about the fact that you're giving charity. You have to hide it. It says, the simple reason, why do you have to hide giving of charity? So the other guy will not be embarrassed. So it looks like, what was Rabbi Chinana do? He used to go out with money or with food in the middle of the night, and he used to put it on the doorsteps of the people, so that they would not know who gave them the charitable thing. So then they will see him the next day, they won't be embarrassed. So that was he's done. So it says, I'm forced to do it. I have to give the charity at night, in setters, so people don't see me. וכיוון שאני עוסק במצוות מתן בסתר, it says, since I am giving it in charity while I'm hiding, אינני חושש מהרוחות הרעים. So don't come and say I'm going to harm you because you come into my night. I have permission to come into your territory from God, because God told me that I have to give charity while I'm hiding. Yes. Matan beseter. Therefore, you don't have the right to come and claim me. I'm going to take your life away. That's what he's telling you. He says, you come into my neighborhood, I'm going to take your life away. That's what so you don't have the right. God says, I have the right to do that. It says, והיה הרוח הוא מפחד ממנו. That demon was scared of him. מרבי חיננה בר פפא, הוא ברח מלפניו, and he ran away from him. But nevertheless, what do we learn from the story?
Matan beseter is okay.
But regular matan is not okay. So it's only okay when you want to do a commandment, to do it in hidden. But it says, and the Rebbe is asking about himself. I don't do it hidden. I give it to you. Everybody sees it. So also this is a problem. And now we're going to bring the third one. Now it's going to be the third one. Yeah, the Chida was you probably know it's a famous name, Azulai. Azulai comes from the Chida. All the Azulais are the descendants of the Chida. Source number 2 on page number 4. Source number 2 on page number 4. So the Chida was Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai. He lived around 1724, around that time. So he says also in the name of he was also a big Kabbalist. And he also quotes the Arizal. So let's look inside what he says about the Arizal. It says, Rabbeinu Ha'ari. It says, Rabbeinu Ha'ari, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the Arizal, היה נותן צדקה לגבי, used to give charity to the guy who asked for charity, בתפילת שחרית ובתפילת מנחה. He used to give money for shachrit, before davening in the morning, and before davening in the afternoon. ולא בתפילת מעריב. Nobody ever saw him give charity at night, because what? Giving charity at night increases, he says, the power of the Sitra Acha. It's like you giving charity to evil inclination. It says, that's right, it's like learning Torah in Ratzmach. Exactly the same idea. It's like learning Torah during Christmas. It says, why don't we learn Torah? Because it increases the power of the evil, of that evil. So over here, it says the same idea. He doesn't give. We don't want to increase the power of that. You giving charity in that time, it increases that power. That's what the Arizal says, like this. And the Rebbe says, so now the Rebbe brought 3 problems why he shouldn't give dollars. Right? So after he brought the 3 problems, now he has to address it. So now this is what it says. We're on page number 5. והמענה בזה, and says, and to understand what is going on. המענה בזה. Why are we doing this? The Rebbe says. נהוג בכמה וכמה מקומות. First of all, the Rebbe says, look at the custom of the people. It says this is the custom in many, many places. ובפרט במדינה זו. And he says, and especially here in America. Especially here in America. שכאשר עורכים אספות למטרת מגבית של כסף, that when you do fundraising and you fundraise a lot of money, when you want to do a fundraiser, הנה ברובם ככולם עורכים זאת ביחד עם סעודת מלווה מלכם. When is a good time to do fundraising? מוצאי Shabbos. Most of the fundraising in America is done Motzei Shabbos. They do big dinners after Shabbat, and they have all the people coming over. He says that is what people do. Klomar balayla. So first of all, we see one thing. What's the custom in America? To do it specifically at night. And specifically when? Motzei Shabbos dafka. Specifically Motzei Shabbos. Specifically over there. But that's not an argument that in America that's the way they do. What do you do? You've got 3 places over there that it says you shouldn't do them. How's that an argument? So let's continue. והמדובר, and it says, if you're a smart person, immediately you realize what we're not talking about people who don't know what they're doing, who are doing this. We're talking about people who know what they're doing. Religious people who do such things. It's not just people here and there that, conservatives and reform who do whatever comes on their minds. It says these are people that obviously before they're doing such events, they probably asked the rabbi and they probably consulted with the rabbis. So let's see. והמדובר אודות מקביות של צדקה שנערכות על ידי מוסדות כאלו. I'm not talking about reform or conservative shuls that are making charity events. We're talking about very religious organizations that do it.
Well, maybe they are missing. Because if they can't do it Monday, nobody would come. So Motzei Shabbat, kulam there.
Maybe. But doesn't matter. It's allowed. If they do it. If they do it. First of all, it says, they do it. כאלה שהעומדים בראשם יודעים אודות דברי ירושלמי. We're not talking about conservative or reform who have no idea what it says in the Yerushalmi. Or conservative or reform who have no idea what the Arizal says. Or people who have no idea what who Rabbi Yehuda Chassid is. We're talking about religious organization with big rabbis. And they all know about it. And still, they do it. ודינוי בצוות רבי יהודה חסיד. כלומר, which means, first of all, you should know שזהו עניין שכבר דשו ברבים. It says there were already many discussions and people know that this is a problem and nevertheless even know that they know Rabbi Yehuda Chassid and they know everything. A lot of people come to a religious shul and they read something in a book. They read something, so they remember what they read. They read something in a halachic book, and this is what they read. And they come to shul, and they see that everybody is doing something else. But they are stubborn, because they read it in a book. It says, I read it in a book, therefore it must be the right thing. So the Rebbe immediately tells you, if everybody is doing something, and you're coming to, I'm not talking about the conservative reform shul, you're coming to an orthodox shul and people know what they're doing, obviously it's not a problem with them, you don't know enough. Go and learn some more. That's the first thing that the Rebbe says. That's the first thing it says. So obviously if there's something is happening over here, obviously it's allowed. So he continues. ויש לבאר זאת. So the Rebbe says, but I'm going to explain exactly, because people do it, but people don't know the reason why we do it. So I'm going to explain exactly the sources of this custom of doing it and why we do it in such a manner. That we do it at night and specifically after Shabbat. ויש לבאר זאת, and we have to explain it, על פי דברי אדמו"ר הזקן באיגרת הקודש. We're going to learn a little bit of Tanya over here. In Igeret HaKodesh, the Alter Rebbe has a similar thing. What does it say over there? Echeyot kol ikar avodat Hashem bayitim alalu. The Alter Rebbe in Igeret HaKodesh says, you know what's the main commandment during these times? He says, Bi'ikvot Meshicha, at the times where Mashiach is about to come, hi avodat tzedakah. He says, the main job, the main mitzvah that we have to do these days is specifically charity. That's the main mitzvah. So it says, כמאמר רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, and the Alter Rebbe explains, where does it say this? It says, the sages says it, אין ישראל נגאלים אלא בצדקה. It says the only reason the Jews are going to come out of their exile is because of charity. ולא אמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה. It says, and here I have a problem. If you open up the Gemaras, if you open up the Mishnah, if you open up the entire Torah before that, you know what they used to say? Exactly the opposite. What people used to say before that? ולא אמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, and the sages did not say, תלמוד תורה שקול כנגד גמילות חסדים. It says, hey, but it says, specifically in the Torah, we say, תלמוד תורה כנגד כולם. Learning Torah is more important than all commandments put together. If you put all the commandments put together on one side and learning Torah on the other side, learning Torah trumps all the commandments. You don't say that. You still say that charity out-trumps even learning Torah. So it says, how is it possible? That's what the Alter Rebbe says. So the Alter Rebbe explains. It says, it's not that the Torah changes. The Torah doesn't change. Now we'll see. The Torah doesn't change. It says Torah stays exactly the same at all times. So it says, obviously there's something wrong over here. First of all, in our understanding, when it says Talmud Torah keneged kulam, maybe we don't understand it the right way. When it says that Talmud Torah out-trumps everything else put together, maybe we don't understand it the right way. So the Alter Rebbe is going to explain to us. And he says, it says, when do we say that learning Torah is against everybody else? It says those are for the people who actually learn Torah. First of all, for people who have the brains to learn Torah, like for example, for whom? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. For him, Talmud Torah is connected to Kulam. Torah learning is more important than everything else. That's why he didn't do any commandments. He just sat in the cave and he learned Torah all day long. And so on. But it says this is special people. This is not the people we have here today. When they said learning Torah is against everybody, they were talking about whom? Those kind of people. Ela beyamehem. They were talking about the days of the Talmud, the days of the Gemara, the days of the Mishnah. That's what they're talking about. Shetalmud Torah haya ikar avodah etzlam. And you could see, what did these guys do? Did they go to work? No, they didn't go to work. You know how they used to go to work? Those who were poor, those who had enough to eat, never went to work. They just sat down and learned Torah. Those who were poor and couldn't, every day they would go out, and as soon as they made enough money for the families to eat, at that second they would stop working, and they would come and learn Torah the entire day, and the next day, do it all over again. Go to make enough money so that they can sustain their family, and that's what they do. They didn't keep it for 2 days ahead. They didn't have a bank account or anything. Yeah, exactly, like Hillel. So for those people, we're going to say, Talmud Torah כנגד כולם. ועל כן היו חכמים גדולים, תנאים ומורים, מה שאין כן בעקבות משיחה. It says, but this is not talking about our time. When we say that learning Torah is against everybody, it's not talking about guys who waste 99% of the day on YouTube, and the other 5% maybe they do something in the computer and they say they worked. You know? Nobody's learning Torah today, and nobody says so. If you're wasting the time anyway, we'll see what to do. In our time, nafla sukat David v'chulo. In our time, the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, and the people are not such learners like they used to be in the old time. That's why in our time the main mitzvah is what? Charity. That's what the Alter Rebbe says, and it is not what? Talmud Torah. It's not Talmud Torah. It's not that you don't have to learn Torah. Of course you have to learn Torah. But the main commandment for people that go to work and have a business and all day long they do with charity, what's the main commandment for them? Do charity. That's the main term. So it brings from Tractate Peah.
But where does it say? It doesn't say.
That's the Alter Rebbe explains why the sages says that in the times of Mashiach, charity is more important.
Oh, because of the Mashiach.
That's right. Elu dvarim. So let's look at the source where it says the Torah is the most important. So it says, Elu dvarim she'adam ochel perotehem ba'olam hazeh. This is on page 6 in the bottom. These are the things that people eat the interest, the fruits in this world, והקרן קיימת לו לעולם הבא. But the main money remains for the world to come. In other words, you're only eating the interest for these commandments. The main body is for the world to come, the investment. ואלו הם. The principle stays.
No?
Thank you. The principle stays. It's like buying Coca-Cola for the dividends. The dividends in this world.
And the Coca-Cola stay there.
That's right. ואלו הם. כיבוד אב ואם, honoring father and mother. You're going to get something in this world, but the principle states for the next world. גמילות חסדים, doing kindness, השכמת בית המדרש, שחרית ועברית, going to shul during morning at night, הכנסת אורחים, inviting guests, ביקור חולים, visiting the sick, הכנסת כלה, helping a young maiden to get married, לוויית המת, going to a funeral, עיון תפילה, praying with kavana, והבאת שלום בין אדם לחברו, and bringing peace between a man and his friend, ובין איש לאשתו, and between a man to his wife. ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם. And then it says, and you should know, learning Torah out-trumps everybody. This is, it says, Masechet Peah, like it says, right?
It doesn't say out-trump, it says equal.
What does it mean? Keneged kulam. Keneged kulam means it outweighs all of them. It's the translation maybe is not an accurate. Yeah, it says it outweighs the whole bunch.
But if you're not a scholar or an intellectual, you're better off to give charity.
Oh, this is what the Alter. So that's
a
the way.
bigger contribution.
That's the way the Alter Rebbe is going to say it. Now he's going to say exactly what you said. Diluchora tamua. It says I don't understand. כיצד אפשר לומר שמה שכתוב בתורה, תלמוד תורה שקול כנגד גמילות חסדים, it says it in the Torah. The Torah itself says that learning Torah is more important than being kind, which means giving charity. It says it. לא היה זה אלא בימיהם של התנאים והאמוראים? It says, you want to tell me it was only in the time of these guys, the תנאים והאמוראים, ואילו בימינו אלו נשתנה מה שכתוב בתורה? And in our times, the Torah changed? It says, even then, after the explanation, the Torah changed. What exactly happened? So it's going to explain. Actually, you know what? I'm going to give the explanation a little bit from Rabbi Steinsaltz. Rabbi Evan Israel has a beautiful explanation over here. I'm going to say his explanation, then we're going to read it inside. Rabbi Steinsaltz says like this. It says that Mashiach is like a person. Mashiach started in the desert. That's when it started, in the time of the desert. So in the beginning, all in the beginning years of the Jewish people after they're in the desert and in the land of Israel and the Mishnah and the Gemara, what were the people creating in the body of Mashiach? They were creating his head. They started to build Mashiach from top to bottom. And they were creating his head. And then the later generations were creating his heart. Right now we're in the end generations. What are we creating? The soles of the feet. He says that's what we are creating. So it says when you're creating the soles of the feet, it's a different kind of work when you're creating the head. When you're creating the head, how do you create the head? With thinking, with learning, with this. It says now, how do we create Mashiach? How do we bring Mashiach? With the soles of our feet. In other words, with work. This is what we do. We're taking us from place to place and doing things. So let's look inside. והביאור בזה, the explanation in this. שאין זה שינוי בתורה חס ושלום. We're not talking about that the Torah changed. So we need to understand. But the Torah, it looks like it did change. כי אם שינוי במצב העולם. We're talking about the world itself became different. The situation became different. So he says, what do you mean? The Torah discusses about all situations. What do you mean the situation became different? So it says, מכיוון שבעקבות משיחה נפלה סוכת דוד. It says, since the time that בעקבות משיחה, people are not such scholars like they used to be in the old times, ובהכרח לעלותה al yedei avodat tzedakah, and the way to raise it now, we will not be able to raise it through learning Torah, because we don't have the capability of learning Torah. נמצא שזהו עניין שהזמן גרמה. So now we're going to learn a halacha. The halacha says there are mitzvahs that has to do with time. What does it mean there's a mitzvah that has to do with time? So let's explain. Let's take Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. Somebody who sat down and learned Torah the whole day. Right? This is such a person. So he says, for him also the commandment of charity was more important than learning Torah. It says when? It says it wasn't, because he didn't. He had somebody do, he was very rich. He gave somebody, hey, give donations, here's my money. And he sat down and learned Torah. So what are you saying that it's more important? He didn't. He wasn't so busy every day with the charity. But it says, what would have happened to Rabbi Yehuda Anasi if a poor person would knock on his door when he's learning Torah and he says, I'm starving and my family is starving, we don't have food. What would Rabbi Yehuda Anasi told him? Excuse me, right now what? I'm learning Torah. And what? And learning Torah is what? More important than everybody else? You can't say that. This has to do with a mitzvah that the time, it's bound with time. It means if you're not going to feed him now, you know what's going to happen? He's going to die. His family is going to die. So it says, over here when we're talking about commandments, when it has to do with time, obviously we're not talking about that Talmud Torah, we'll see, that Talmud Torah is against everybody else. ומצווה שהזמן גרמה, in other words, it's time to put on tefillin. Right now is the time to put on tefillin. So don't put on tefillin, Rabbi Yehuda? Obviously, put on tefillin and learn Torah afterwards. You don't say, no, learning Torah is more important than any other mitzvah. Learning Torah is more important than there are commandments that have to do with time. Time comes first and then the learning Torah comes. דוחה את לימוד התורה. So the Rebbe says, ועל דרך זה מובן בנוגע לענייננו. So now it also comes when it matters to our time, when what we are discussing, giving charity at night and מוצאי Shabbos. מכיוון שנמצאים בסוף זמן הגלות ממש, it says, what time are we in now? We are in a time that when Mashiach is about to come. And there are millions of Jews around the world who are drowning. Now you don't have to be drowning physically. You can be drowning spiritually. There are millions of people who are drowning right now. So what are you going to say right now? This is the time for what? For me to learn Torah? Or right now is the time to do what? To give as much charity as possible so that to save all these Jews from harm that can come to them.
By bringing the Mashiach.
By helping organizations to bring Jews closer to Torah.
By giving the
charity. That's right.
Nothing to do to Mashiach.
Yeah, that is Mashiach. That is Mashiach. שאז העובדה שהזמן גרמה היא עבודת הצדקה. Now the most important thing is to make sure that Jews know about Judaism. The Jews,
they're hungry.
They're hungry. And we're going to see that the Rebbe wasn't talking just about spiritual. He was also talking about spiritual, but mainly he was talking about physical help of the Jews. Let's see inside. כמאמר רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, just like our sage says, אין ישראל נגאלים אלא בצדקה. It says the Jews are going to get out of exile through charity. לכן על פי התורה מתבטלים כל ההגבלות. Then the Torah itself says it's not time to keep Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. It's not time to keep the Yerushalmi. It's not. Somebody is hungry right now. He's starving. He's going to die. Now is the time to what? To make sure he has money in order to survive. בנוגע לנתינת צדקה במוצאי שבת ובלילה. Says now it's not a problem if you give charity at night and you give it מוצאי Shabbos. מפני גודל חשיבות הדבר עניין שהזמן גרמה. Says this is life and death situation. It's a time-bound commandment. Let's continue. And now he's going to explain this all about America. וזוהי גם ההסברה לפשר העובדה שהמנהג, and then the Rebbe says, and now you're going to understand why this custom started Where? Why, in Europe they didn't know about these things, what I'm saying? It says, didn't they know this in Europe? So how come throughout the last 2,000 years, when Jews were in Europe, all over the place, nobody came up with such a concept? Why did it start specifically over here in America? The Rebbe is asking.
Because they had more money and less Torah.
Let's see.
Maybe.
Let's see. Why did it start?
You're saying that you can break a law to save a life. Isn't that what you're saying in a way?
It says learning Torah, it might be comparable to all the other commandments as long as there's not hungry people at the moment. When there's a hungry child, you have to feed him and then learn Torah. So over here it says there are hungry children over here. We'll see where's the hungry children of. We don't know where the hungry children are yet. But that's what we're saying. בואם של היהודים למדינה זו, it says, and look at the way the Rebbe looks at Jews coming to this land. He looks at Jews coming to this land just like the exile of Yosef. He says, when Yosef was sent down to Egypt, why was Yosef happy? No, he was taken away from Yiddishkeit. He was taken away from Judaism. He was taken away from his father's house. He was crying day and night about the fact that he cannot be with his father. So it wasn't a good thing. So it says, but in the end, how did it end up?
Good.
The best thing possible. So it says it's the same thing over here. The Jews in Europe, when they used to send their kids over to America, they used to cry. They used to be, says why? Because Jews did not remain Jews after coming to America. People did not remain Jews. The Hasidim that came before from Russia, from Poland, from Lithuania to America in the 1920s and the 1930s, I would say 99% of the Jews that came stopped keeping Torah, didn't have beards, stopped with the Judaism. It stopped completely. Everybody. Even Chabad.
Lama, because it was so good?
No, the opposite. If a person who did not work on Shabbat, didn't have a job. That's it. There was no jobs. You want to survive. You want to eat. People told you as you come here. This is different than Poland. You have to become like the Goyim. If you don't become like the Goyim, you will not succeed over here. It's not going to be possible. Yeah, it changed after the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America. He made a big push. But he says, like Yosef says, the Jews that came to America, they were crying. Their Judaism was gone. But it was for a good reason. In the beginning, what happened to these Jews? They removed their beards, they stopped keeping Shabbat, they stopped doing commandments, they stopped doing all these things. להביא יהודים לארץ צייה ועייף בלי מים. They brought Jews to a place where there's no godliness in it. Godliness was in Europe. There was no godliness in America. America was the land of the depraved. מקום שבו היו צריכים בזמנים הראשונים, אויס גריסן ורן. There were many challenges. They needed so many challenges to pass in order to actually be a Jew in America. It was unbelievable. בנוגע לענייני יהדות, when it comes to Judaism. ואפילו בנוגע לעניינים גשמיים, not only when it came to Judaism, even just to make a living here in America. It was very difficult in the beginning. There was no government like today that gives money to the poor. You didn't have money, you starved. הנה לאחרי המהפכה שהייתה מעבר לים רחמנא ליצלן, after World War II that happened over there, נתגלה מטרת בואם של היהודים במדינת זו. So it says now everybody understood why those Jews were removed from their homeland to a place where there's no Torah, to a place where there's no mitzvahs. Why? כדי שירוויחו הרבה כסף. Because the thing that saved European Jewry was the Jews in America. The Jews in America helped, and not only European Jewry, also the land of Israel. The only reason there's a land of Israel is because of the Jews of America.
Yes, I agree.
ויוכלו לסייע ולהציל את שארית הפליטה. They saved all the Jewry in the world. The Jews of America.
As a kid, always we had problems. Always America. They'll help us. They'll this. Money will come. They'll give us the money.
Exactly.
I remember as a kid.
Very good.
ממש, זה תמיד היה משם, מאמריקה.
And the Rebbe says, ואין כאן המקום להאריך בזה. For sure, everybody who lived during that time remembers that time, like Arya says. ובנוגע לענייננו, it says, when it comes to what we're discussing,
It's like suddenly that you allowed to learn in this time the Kabbalah.
that's right, it's a new time. It's a new time, that's right.
Change.
מכיוון שמדינה זו מצטיינת בעניין הצדקה, if you're going to look in the world, who's the country that people in that country give the most charity? And by the way, I think America is by far. You can't even compare it to the second. It's like America and then the rest of the world. It's not even comparable, the amount of charity that's getting done in America. It says, לכן המנהג לעריכת מגבית צדקה גם במוצאי שבת. It says that's why the custom is to do it במוצאי שבת. You know why? It's as manga. Jews are dying in Israel. Jews are dying in Europe. You need to do it when? Now. Immediately. In other words, the most important thing is lots of money. That's what we need. I don't care about your Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. I don't care about this. Right now, people are dying in the world. Jews are dying all over the... Our main concern is to save their life.
They are dying, Rabbi, because they are starving for Torah, or they are starving for...
We got it. He's talking right now that they are dying, World War II, there it is Israel. But also, absolutely, also the starving of Torah is the same thing, as we're going to see soon. המורה על גודל ההכרח והנחיצות שבדבר מפני היותו עניין שהזמן גורמה. You cannot say, let's push it to another time. This is the best time to raise money, and we're going to see soon why it's the best time. התחיל גם במדינה הזאת דווקא. It says that's why it started, this whole custom started well, specifically in this country. ההסברה החיצונית שמנהג זה היא מפני שביום ראשון בשבוע פנויים הכל מהסכם. It says, I tell you practically what's happening. Sunday, nobody works, exactly. You cannot do it Sunday night. Why can't you do it Sunday night?
They go to work on Monday.
Oh, because they cannot stay up late.
Exactly.
So the people are not going to stay there for a long time. And look at the way the Rebbe explains it. מכיוון שהסגורים העסקים בוול סטריט. Because on Sunday the Wall Street is closed. There's no businesses. ולכן עורכים את מגבית הצדקה במוצאי שבת דווקא. Specifically, they're going to do these events after Shabbat. Why? שאז לא יחפזו המשתתפים לסיים את המסיבה כדי שיוכלו ללכת לישון. Nobody is in a hurry to go to sleep. They can sleep tomorrow late, Sunday morning, don't worry. כדי לקום מוקדם בבוקר לרוץ לעסקיהם. In order to run up quickly to their businesses. And then the Rebbe kind of makes, you see the Rebbe's humor over here. אלא ישבו במסיבה עד שעה מאוחרת יותר. All these people are going to sit until a very late hour. ויוכלו להתאפק לשמוע את כל הנאומים של הגבירים. They'll be able to contain themselves and listen to all the long speeches of those who give money. And they puts the gvirim like this, to those who give money. Yeah? And it says why? שכאשר מבקשים מהם כסף, these גבירים, when you ask from them for money, מבקשים הם הגבירים שיניחו להם לנאום ללא הגבלות. They says, if you want me to give money, so I want to give a speech. Says, how much you want to give the speech? Says, how much money do you want? You want a lot of money? So I want a lot to talk. You want a little money? I want a little to talk.
You're talking about Saturday night after Shabbat's over.
That's right.
That's what Shabbat, Motzai.
Motzai Shabbat means when Shabbat is leaving, yeah. Saturday night. That's right. ולא לצאת באמצע מפני כבודם. They don't want the people to start going out. They'll have to stay over there as late as possible. But I'm going to give the money because of that. Don't worry. So that's the practical explanation.
Rabbi, I see the Rabbi understands exactly
the
system.
That's what he said. It says that's the practical explanation. But it says it's not just the practical explanation, it's a spiritual explanation also. אלא ההסברה הפנימית שבדבר היא. But it says, but the spiritual real reason is, כאמור לעיל, it's what we explained. מכיוון שבסוף זמן הגלות, it says, now Mashiach is going to come, it's at the end of times. מודגש יותר הצורך והנחיצות למצוות הצדקה. There's millions of Jews who are drowning. מצווה שהזמן גמר, we need to save them. כנזכר לעיל בארוכה. Like it mentions lately in a long way. One more thing. So the Rebbe says this story. And the Rebbe says, פעם בהיותי בבית הכנסת בלילה. So there was one time I was at shul at night. This was, I think it was in France.
Who, the Rebbe?
The Rebbe was in shul at night. This was in France.
Oh.
When he was still in France. He was at shul at night. Now, you have to remember that people knew who the Rebbe was even when he was in France. They knew he was a special man. Everybody knew he was special. So he was in shul in France somewhere. ושלשלתי דבר מה בקופת צדקה. And it was during the night, and I put a couple of coins in the tzedakah box. And now this is against what? Against everybody until now. That's we said before. Yeah. Yehuda Chassid, everybody else. So ניגש אליי מישהו וטען. So the Rebbe says, somebody came over to me, and he rebuked me. He knew. I said, I understand somebody who doesn't know, but somebody like you, who knows all the laws, you give charity at night? הייתכן שאתם נוהגים כך? It's possible that somebody of your greatness doesn't know all these things? והראית להדיה בכתבי האריזל. It says, I know that you know the Arizal, and the Arizal says specifically, אין ניתן צדקה בלילה, you don't give charity at night. So how do you do that? No, it wasn't Rebbe then.
לא, אבל עדיין.
לאחרי זה, after that, כשהייתי אצל כבוד קדושת מוחדמו, so it says, the Rebbe says, after that, when I saw the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, my father-in-law, אמרתי לו שקיבלתי היום פסק, וסיפרתי לו המעשה אודות הפסק. It says, somebody gave me a psak, somebody gave me a Jewish law, and I told him about the Jewish law that somebody told me. שקיבלתי מאחד בעניין נתינת צדקה בלילה. He told me about me giving charity at night. נענה כבוד קדושת מוחדמו ואמר, it says, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe told me, הלה, it says, that guy that went over and complained to you, מסתמה אינו נותן צדקה גם ביום. He obviously doesn't even give charity during the day. ולכן מצער אותו, therefore he has a hard time that somebody gives during the night. כשזולתו נותן צדקה בלילה. It says, what's bothering you? What is bothering you? What do you say? Somebody wants to give charity at night. It's something good. What is bothering you? It says, obviously the thing that it's bothering you because you probably don't give charity. So it bothers you that somebody not only gives in the day, he also gives at night.
If you spot it, you got it. If you see something that upsets you, you got to look back.
That's right. ואמרו רבותינו ז"ל, and our sage says, אשר על ידי נתינת צדקה לעני, when a person gives charity to a poor person, we're on page 10, התפילה פועלת וממשכת חיים טובים, גאולה וישועה, פרנסה וכלכלה. The reason why we give charity, specifically before Shachis, before Mincha, that we daven, if you notice people give a coin before Shachis, before Mincha, is it why? Because God says, oh, you're helping my people, I'm going to help you. I see that you're my partner, you're helping my people, so I will look nicer at you. והנה אדם, כמו כל הנבראים, is a person like all other creatures, ואפילו מלאכי עליון, even angels, בעל גוף ונפש הוא, he has a body and a soul, וכמו שיש עני בגוף וצרכי הגוף, just like there are poor people in material needs, they don't have, כך יש עני בנפש. The Rebbe says specifically in America, there are millions of starving Jews, not in body. People have a lot of money in America, but the starving Jews spiritually starving. They don't have Yiddishkeit. וצרכי הנפש, for the things of the soul. לכן גם בצדקה, so therefore also in charity, ישנה צדקה בגשם וצדקה ברוח. There's two types of charity. There's a charity with money, and there's a charity in spirit, for the soul. וכמאמר רז"ל, and like the sages says, כי תראה ערום וכיסיתו כיצד? So it says, but how? When I see a naked person, I can buy him pants. I can buy him a suit. When I see a naked person spiritually, what can I buy him? What can I give him? So it says, אלא אם ראית אדם שאין בו דברי תורה. So the sages tells you, if you saw a person that you see doesn't have Torah in him, he's naked. By the way, you remember the garments that we have? The garments are commandments. He's naked of garments. He doesn't do commandments. הכניסהו לביתך. It says, what is your responsibility? Make sure he comes to your house. ולמדהו קריאת שמע ותפילה. Teach him that there's a God. Teach him how to read Shema. Teach him how to daven. ולמדהו וזרזר במצוות. Teach him about the commandments. וכמו שבקשת כל אחת ואחד מאיתנו היא לכתיבה וחתימה טובה בגשמיות וברוחניות, just like each and every one of us wants on Rosh Hashanah God to remember him for the good, כך על כל אחד ואחד מאיתנו להשתדל בצדקה גשמית וצדקה רוחנית. So each and every one of us needs to be everything in his power to give extra physical charity and extra spiritual charity. גם יחד, together, בפרט במרד שלי, especially when it comes to Tishrei. ובבואנו בימים האלו לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, so that we can come during the auspicious days in front of God, יהיה בידי כל אחת ואחת מאיתנו, each and every one of us will have in his hands חשבון גדול. He will have a big list of all the physical charity that he did and all the spiritual charity that he did. לפי מאודו שלו, בצדקה שעשה להושיע את העני בגשם, ושל צדקה שצריך את העני בגשם, both in physical and spiritual. Now you're going to ask a question, the Rebbe says, but Rabbi, what do you want me? You want me to sit down and learn a Gemara with a guy, learn a Shulchan Aruch with a guy? I don't know Gemara enough for me to learn for myself. I don't know enough Shulchan Aruch. How can I teach somebody else? I am poor too. Says, I am poor too when it comes to spirituality. I'm poor too. Maybe also physically. Just that even as physically, if a person is poor physically, he's still required to give charity. Right. There's charity you always require. 10% of what you make, you give for charity. It doesn't matter how poor you are. Nobody asks you how poor you are. Right. So same thing it says the Rebbe, it comes with spiritual manner. Don't tell me you don't have enough. 10% of what you have in spiritual, you give it. And he's going to explain how. וכמו שבצדקה בגשם, just like in physical charity. גם אני בגשם מחויב בה, even if you don't physically, you're a poor person, still from what you earn, you need to give 10%. It doesn't say you don't have to give now. כי אין לך עני שאינו יכול למצוא אופן איך לעזור לעני חברו. And if he doesn't have money to give him, he can share with him his food. He can share with him his clothes. He can hug him to keep him warm. I don't care what. There's something he can do. כך בצדקה ברוח. It says also when it comes to spiritual charity, it is the same thing. שגם העני ברוח מחויב בה. If you don't know Gemara, says, what am I going to teach him? I don't know Gemara. I don't know. Says, nobody asks you to know Gemara. Do you know how to do a Shabbos meal? You know how to do a Shabbos meal? Invite him over for a Shabbos meal. He never seen a Shabbos meal before.
Teach him how to do Shema.
Teach him how to do Shema if you know how to do Shema. If you know how to wash your hands in a Shabbos meal, teach him how to wash his hands in a Shabbos meal. You don't have to teach with him Gemara. The teaching you can leave to the rabbi. You can leave him to the rabbi. You can say, or bring him to shul, to the rabbi, to Zehu. But there's plenty, even if you don't know. Let's say you don't know enough to teach the Shema. There are things that you do know. Teach him those. Invite him over. שגם העני, כי אין לך איש ואישה בישראל. It says there are no such thing. Not one Jew, whether a man, whether a woman, שאינו יכול להשפיע, that cannot have a positive effect on other Jews, to bring them closer to fear of heavens and to learn Torah and do mitzvahs.
אבל starvation of the spiritually
is more severe today than the starvation of the physically.
More severe, but the question if the money can also help them.
Of course. You open schools, you open shuls, you open yeshivot, you open million other things. Of course, that's the man. That's
That's
where you need to pay.
okay.
Jewish education. That's the most important thing.